was like 2 minutes, and it was like up to our knees, and we all just looked at each other, and actually they looked at me and said, what are we going to do?
They took shelter from Dorian, but were forced to make a harrowing escape when the water began to overtake their home. A story of survival in a country that is now in desperate need of help. The death toll from Hurricane Dorian now stands at 7, but with emergency workers yet to reach many of the hardest hit areas, that number is likely to rise. Tonight, Dorian remains a threat to the U.S. East Coast, but it has moved away from the Bahamas, revealing a stunning amount of devastation. Stephen D'Souza is in Nassau now with the latest.
With every new image from Grand Bahama Island, the vast scope of the devastation wrought by Hurricane Dorian becomes more apparent. Driven by that incredible loss, Bahamians in the capital of Nassau rallied to pack food and supplies.
But think of if you lost everything today, what would be your immediate need? And that's what we're calling for.
And they mean everything, from soap and toiletries to baby food to clothes. They can't fill the boxes fast enough.
Bahamians are very accustomed to hurricanes, and so there really is a lot of love, a lot of solidarity. People are just looking for ways to plug in and make a big difference right now.
For every box that's filled, a new story emerges of the unimaginable suffering. This man lost more than his house and boats when the floodwater, more than 6 meters high, rushed through his home.
My poor little wife got hypothermia, and she was standing on top of the kitchen cabinets until they disintegrated. And then I kept with her, and she just drowned on me.
Stories like that inspired Vancouver resident Ronald Munoz and his girlfriend to cut short their vacation.
Knowing what's going on, it's kind of difficult to enjoy the vacation when you know that, other people need help.
But donations can't get far. Chartered pilots are grounded, so government and military aircraft have clear airspace. And right now, the only working runway in either Abaco Island or Grand Bahama can only fit one plane at a time.
It is frustrating. We have everything in place and we're all ready to go. We're really eager. We have a lot of friends and family who are directly impacted by this.
So aid groups are left waiting to access the hardest hit areas, preparing for the long haul.
We really believe historically we are looking at a marathon, not a sprint.
A marathon where the real work has yet to begin. Stephen D'Souza, CBC News, Nassau, the Bahamas.
And there are some incredible survival stories coming out of the Bahamas tonight. One of them is from a news photographer, Tim Aylin, who lives in Freeport with his family. They were hunkered down, waiting out the storm in an area that was supposed to be safe. But after hours of driving rain and wind, the water started coming into their home, and they realized they had to get out. That's when Aylin grabbed his camera and began recording. He spoke to CBC News earlier today.
About 4 o'clock, that's when it started to get serious, and we saw the water coming under, well, my son saw the water coming in under the garage. And then he ran to my wife and told her, and she went to have a look. And then my wife came to get me. I was actually resting, I was asleep, she woke me up. And in that 30 seconds from her coming to me, we went back into the living room. The water was in the house. And then it kept rising, and it was like 2 minutes, and it was like up to our knees. And we all just looked at each other, and actually they looked at me and said, what are we going to do? And so we started, like, we've got lives on the line. So we thought about the attic, and I went actually up to the attic and I had a look at it. But that's like a trap. There was no way out. So I thought that was crazy. And then we just considered the window. My wife said, let's get out the window. So we pushed that out. And then I jumped out and went to look for dry land, basically. I've been through a lot of hurricanes, but I've never seen something just sit on us and just moving at 1 mile an hour, and it just wouldn't give up.
Aylin, his family, and the dogs, you might have noticed in the video, all got safely to a shelter. Then Aylin went back to his neighborhood and helped to rescue dozens of others who were trapped in the water. Now, Dorian is moving north. The path of this hurricane could bring it right over the Carolinas as early as tomorrow, and residents living along the coast have been told to leave now. Ellen Morrow has more from Charleston, South Carolina.
You can see we're starting to feel some of the outer bands of Hurricane Dorian. The winds and the rains have been picking up over the last few hours. That has not stopped, though, people from wanting to come out here along the boardwalk in historic Charleston to see what is happening here. Are you guys ready for the storm? Are you ready for the...
I think so. Yeah, I think we are. We've got water and everything we need, so I think we're good. Yeah.
Wish you best of luck. Keep safe.
Yes.
Keep safe. Thanks, guys. So that's sort of the attitude of people here, but this is going to be a serious storm. They're already experiencing very high tides here, and in this area where I am now, they're calling for a storm surge of possibly up to 2.5 meters. Along with that, obviously there's going to be torrential rains during the storm, perhaps some 25 centimeters of rain. Along with those two things, we're also going to be facing hurricane force winds, perhaps gusts of higher than 100 kilometers an hour. So this is just a small taste of what the rest of the day and tomorrow is going to be like here in Charleston. Authorities are telling people, despite the people who are out here now, to take this storm seriously. We spoke to the mayor of Charleston, John Tecklenburg, a short time ago.
Well, I'm very concerned. We have a threat, a triple threat of water between high tides, heavy rains, and storm surge, which combined together can produce flooding in our city. We've seen it before. The prediction already for late tonight, early Thursday morning, is that the tide, which is a combination of the tide itself and the surge, will be higher than it was in Hurricane Irma. And during that event, a good percentage of our peninsula city, downtown city, was in fact covered with water.
As people are walking along the boardwalk, there is a calm attitude here, but there is a lot of preparations that have been going on as well. Downtown, most of the homes and businesses are boarded up. We met a man this morning who lives not too far from the water, and they were preparing against that possible 2.5 meter storm surge. We spoke to him about those preparations. Here's what he had to say.
Trying to protect the house, some sandbags, some plastic, and hopefully the storm surge is not higher than that.
Are you worried about that? About
Sure.
it being higher?
Well, sure, of course. You never know.
Have you had floods in the past?
Yeah, Matthew and Irma. That was only in the house about 18 inches.
How do you feel when you're preparing your house for a storm surge? I mean, anxiety or inevitability? I mean, how do you feel doing this today?
Party on. Bring it on. Hurricane party.
Focus on the job.
Focus on the job.
He's focused on the job. I'm focused on party hurricane.
So, you know, for some people, very much a keep calm and carry on attitude. Though we did meet one man whose hurricane shutters weren't working. He was trying to put them, get them closed this morning. He was very anxious about this storm. And as you can see, this is just the very early taste of what Charleston will be seeing over the next 24 hours or so.
All right, let's check in with Colette. Colette, you have been watching this storm. Where is it now?
Yes, Dwight, we'll have a look here, and it is essentially to the east of Jacksonville, Florida, beginning to move even further north from there. So still that eye wall running parallel to the coastline here, and as we go into these evening and overnight hours, coming along the coast of Georgia before it extends upwards towards the Carolinas. You can see what's happened over the last 24 hours is that it's getting more of a distinguished eye wall here as it's starting to take shape a little bit, and just keeping in mind that those hurricane force winds extend well towards the coastline, a tropical storm in towards central Florida, and certainly the same into Georgia. Heavier bands of rain here, and that's what we're looking at, that potential already, even though it's out well ahead, the coastline here of North Carolina out ahead of the storm, still they're already being hammered by some of these heavier rains beginning to move in their direction. Nothing like they're going to see. Isolated areas of North and South Carolina could be seeing as much as almost 0.5 meter of rainfall as this moves through. Has it picked up speed? A little bit from where it was yesterday. So in terms of how it is moving north-northwest at about 13 kilometers an hour, and those winds at 175 kilometers an hour, taking it very dangerously close to the coastline in terms of likely those outer banks will be seeing a direct hit potentially, but it should stay well out towards the east of Ontario, but certainly having an impact on Atlantic Canada. Why it won't have such an impact, though, on us back here and towards Ontario is going to be a couple of cold fronts pushing through that will continue to carry it on towards the east of us. So that's why we are going to see much pleasanter conditions, certainly into the overnight hours, perhaps a little bit of patchy fog tonight, and that's about all that we'll be dealing with. Certainly no severe weather here that we're looking at. But again, what we're talking about with the storm surge with that system, Dwight, could be in the neighborhood of 5 to 8 feet, that extending up towards Myrtle Beach. So significant damage still possible, and still a ways before we're going to know exactly where it goes. But again, it looks like we're going to be protected in Ontario, but but still a strong storm, and some heavy rains and very strong winds will be hitting Atlantic Canada.
Yeah, they predicted this one was going to be a monster, and it has been so far. Thank you, Colette.
You're welcome.
You don't have to look too hard to see ads for e-cigarettes and vaping in the GTA, but as concerns over the potential health impacts increase, there are calls tonight to ban those ads. Shannon Martin has been looking into the growth of vaping, especially among teens. And Shannon, some of those calls for a ban coming from here in our city.
That's right, and there's also some research happening right now in our city looking at kids across the country and their exposure to advertising around vaping. The gist, the more they see it, the more likely they are to try it. The risk is they could get hooked.
We're talking state-of-the-art design.
The ads are everywhere, inside stores right next to candy and outside posters galore.
There are big ads. I think it is shown a lot, and there's obviously curiosity, especially in being in high school.
Here in Ontario, at the provincial government level, we have unrestricted promotion in retail settings like convenience stores, gas bars, and all that was legalized late last year. Retailers were given the specific ability to promote in-store their products.
At the same time, 7 other provinces banned vape ads. New research indicates all that promotion could already be having a big impact.
It's déjà vu. The tobacco companies know how to get people attracted to their products. Their products are highly addictive. Once they get them in, they're customers for life.
Robert Schwartz with the University of Toronto School of Public Health is studying the effects of advertising in 1,000 teens.
Our studies will find it eventually, but I don't think we actually have to wait. Kids are picking up vapes or e-cigarettes because they're being advertised and promoted to them, even though the e-cigarette companies say that it is not so.
Given the data you're looking at, do you think we need to see tighter regulations around advertising and e-cigarettes?
Absolutely. In my opinion, the government, and this is true of the federal and the provincial government, should never have allowed this kind of advertising and promotion to happen.
In an email, Ontario's Ministry of Health says it supports preventing youth uptake of vaping products and will continue to monitor the evidence and take action as appropriate.
So despite bringing in that regulation last year that allows for widespread advertising of vaping, the Ontario government has recently signed a letter with all the other provinces urging the federal government to take action on vaping. Dwight, one of the things they're asking for is a ban on all advertising and promotion of vaping.
Well, we can do that ourselves at the provincial level. Thank you for that, Shannon. It's that time of year when Hollywood moves north for the Toronto International Film Festival. The movies, the red carpets, and the celebs will all arrive tomorrow. And for a look at how the city is preparing for the launch of the fest, we go to Ali Chiasson live in David Pico Square. And Ali, this time tomorrow, King Street will be looking more like Hollywood Boulevard.
That's right, Dwight. TIFF is in the air. Everywhere you look around, you can see some of the prep work. The red carpet has already been rolled out and dusted off. Dwight, today is all about the finishing touches. Have a look. TIFF has been around for over 40 years, but it's a festival of firsts for a lot of people, including this year's new executive director, Joanna Vincente, who helped roll out the red carpet today.
It's my first TIFF. Couldn't be more excited.
For first-time festival goers, she recommends
challenge yourself, just see everything you can, and even titles that you might have not heard about or have unknown actors, because those will be the stars of tomorrow.
Speaking of,
it's the first time as a director at TIFF. I'm usually here as an actor, so it's really cool to be here as a director.
Aaron Poole is debuting his short film, Oracle.
It's a scary movie about home renovations and a child's nightmare.
He says for actors, the red carpets can be scary, but as a director,
it's a lot more casual. You can actually talk about film and less about, what you're wearing.
The festival kicks off in less than 24 hours, so there's a lot of prep work happening downtown, and that includes inside kitchens.
Right now it's just calm before the storm.
Tonight, the Ritz-Carlton Hotel is hosting a pricey dinner prepared by 2 of Canada's top chefs, Alex Chen and Antonio Park.
Did you talk about challenge?
Accepted.
It's the first time the Ritz is hosting a dinner like this, where the proceeds go to a local food bank. It's an antidote to the excess and luxury they're known for.
Hello, Ali. Welcome to the Ritz-Carlton Suite.
Happy to be here.
You've got to see the bedroom.
Cozy, amazing view. Only the best when you're hosting Hollywood's best. I feel like a celebrity already, just standing here.
Could be one. You are one now.
Amazing for a day. Whether you're a festival aficionado,
You have to be prepared for everything.
We try to.
or whether you're new in town, there's lots to look forward to.
Lots of different things, lots of amazing films, stars, amazing audiences, really exciting.
So how is this for exciting? At this time tomorrow, this red carpet, it's gray now, it's just covered up, I promise. This red carpet will be star-studded because it is the site of the first one to kick off the festival, and it's the first time a Canadian documentary will start it all off. Send it back to you, Dwight.
We are excited. TIFF time. Thank you, Ali. And if you're traveling downtown in the next few days, watch out for the annual TIFF road closures. As of tomorrow through to Sunday, the Festival Street Party will close a stretch of King Street West from University Avenue to Peter Street to accommodate riders. During the closure, the TTC is diverting its usual King Street cars to Queen Street. The 504 King will turn off King Street at Spadina Avenue in the west and York Street in the east. Welcome back. It's so good to have you
good to be back.
And how are you feeling? She's back all right after several months away due to cancer treatment. Jill Deacon is getting ready to return to Here and Now. After the break, I sit down with Jill to talk about her most recent diagnosis and her recovery.
I was at the point where I could sort of think of cancer as this weird blip that had happened to me, and it was just this funny thing in my past.
Decade ago.
And then it came back, and I thought, oh.
The weather update is brought to you by Train Extreme Conditions Testing. It's hard to stop a train, really hard. Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
She's back. CBC is welcoming back a colleague and friend this week. Jill Deacon will be back in the host seat at CBC Radio's Here and Now starting tomorrow. Jill's been off the air for almost a year battling cancer, the second time she's fought this disease. I got a chance to speak to her today about the difficult journey through diagnosis and treatment and what she's taken away from this experience. I'm going to start by messing up Paul's camera work and give you a quick hug. Oh. Welcome back.
Thank you.
So good to have you
to be back.
And how are you feeling being back at work?
I feel good. I feel really good because I think I have a different, maybe a slightly different perspective on work than I might have otherwise, because I really appreciate that I have the energy to do this.
Yes.
So I'm glad to be here.
When I read your article today, that's just a critical moment that has us here talking today. So maybe take our viewers back to that story.
We go to a friend's family cottage in Georgian Bay, and we always do a round the island swim. And just before we started swimming, the wind picked up. And so I couldn't do breaststroke because I'd get mouthfuls of Georgian Bay water in my mouth if I did. So I did front crawl. And we were swimming clockwise, so I had to pull a little harder with my left arm. And fine, survived the swim, got in the car later that evening to go home, coming down the 400, and I was like, I feel something. I think I might have pulled a muscle doing that swim, but I didn't feel anything on the right. I just felt it on my left side, but it felt more than just pulled muscles. There was something kind of weird about it.
Yeah.
Anyway, bunch of tests, bunch of doctors. Nobody could really see anything clearly. Nobody could really feel it. They're like, I don't think anything's there. Probably scar tissue. Obviously, the final test turned out that it was cancer. So the point is that no doctor could see it, no test could see it, no one could feel it. I only felt it that one occasion because of that swim and because that wind picked up and made me swim that stroke. So
sounds like somebody's looking out for you.
What was behind that wind, but yeah.
Part of it, though, was the fact that you battled this monster before.
Yep. You know, I was 9.5 years out, so
yeah,
I
that's
wasn't
a good
thinking
stretch.
about it anymore. I mean, as much as anybody ever really, I have scars to remind me all the time, but I didn't really think about it. I was at the point where I could sort of think of cancer as this weird blip that had happened to me, and it was just this funny thing in my past.
A decade ago.
Anybody going through a health crisis, a cancer challenge, whatever, knows that it's a head game. Those dark thoughts and worries and things come. I sort of recognize them and go, okay, hold on. I feel well today. I'm surrounded by
friends and people and colleagues who care about
nature.
you.
Being in nature helps me a lot. Those sort of timeless things that just soothe the soul.
We do miss you around here because you are that person who lifts everybody else up. Even when things are going crazy in the newsroom, you're one of the positive people in the room that tries to put smiles on our faces. In the essay, you say that you discovered that radio listeners are a family of a different kind. And you do have a family in the city that are loyal listeners to you. They said, oh, you're the guy you talk to Jill Deacon on the radio. I get that sometimes. What have you been hearing from your listeners?
There are no words, Dwight, for the outpouring of love and support that came from, in every possible form, from listeners, TV watchers, CBC Toronto, just people in this city. They're so good.
They treat you like your family.
There is so much caring from otherwise strangers.
So happy to have you back.
Thank you.
Looking forward to hearing that voice coming out of my car radio and out of my iPhone. And it is,
so good.
yeah, it's really nice to have you back.
See you in the newsroom, my friend.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. It is great to have her back. There is some encouraging news about cancer treatment in Canada. In general, it is working better and patients are living longer. Christine Birak has the latest stats from the Canadian Cancer Society.
Researchers predict more than 220,000 Canadians will be diagnosed with cancer this year. About 63% of those patients will live at least 5 years. That's up from 55% in 1990. But a lot depends on the type of cancer. Thyroid and testicular have survival rates approaching 100%, while the chances of surviving esophageal or pancreatic cancer are quite low. According to this report, pancreatic cancer is expected to become the third deadliest cancer in the country, surpassing breast cancer. And here's why.
The other major cancer types, lung cancer, colorectal cancer, along with breast cancer, for all those major cancer types, we've made really incredible progress over the last few decades. Unfortunately, we're not seeing the same kind of progress for pancreatic cancer.
The biggest increases in survival were in blood cancers, including non-Hodgkin lymphoma, leukemia, and multiple myeloma. More of those patients are now living longer. Still, researchers say a lot of work needs to be done.
But we're still continuing to see an increasing number of Canadians diagnosed with cancer every year. That's largely reflective of the aging and growing population here in Canada, but certainly reinforces the need to continue to learn more about how to prevent, diagnose, and treat cancer.
She says the future of cancer research is likely more precision medicine, customizing treatments based on someone's genetics or a specific type of cancer, with the ultimate goal of helping Canadians live longer, healthier lives. Christine Birak, CBC News, Toronto.
Federal NDP leader Jagmeet Singh is in Toronto tonight. He's speaking at a town hall aimed at addressing issues most important to the Muslim community. I'm Kelda Yoon at U of T. Coming up, Singh's plan on tackling racism, specifically Islamophobia. I'll have more.
A man is facing a murder charge in the death of his mother. The 88-year-old victim was discovered at this home in the Eglinton and Tompkin area of Mississauga last night. Police say she died from blunt force trauma. Her 52-year-old son later went to police and was arrested. Antonio Biono is now facing a second-degree murder charge. An effort to preserve some of the remains of a heritage home continues today. Heavy equipment was brought in as engineers inspected the site of the Jarvis mansion. The blaze ripped through the home starting late on Sunday. It was finally knocked down Tuesday morning. No word yet on the cause, but there were reports of squatters living in the building. Toronto fire officials have said they believe the fire is suspicious. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh is speaking tonight at a town hall at the University of Toronto. It is being organized by the National Canadian Council of Muslims. Kelda Ewan is at the Isabel Bader Theatre. Kelda, Singh is expected to announce a plan to tackle Islamophobia tonight.
That's right, Dwight. That's what the NDP party said that Singh will be doing tonight ahead of the panel discussion. This is a first in a series of town halls organized with the aim to discuss issues that are particularly of importance to the Islamic community. Now, tonight's event is a sold-out event. It's a sold-out town hall. Over 500 people are expected to pack into this Isabel Bader Theatre here at U of T. Now, many different groups are here, such as the U of T Muslim Students Association, the Canadian Council of Muslim Women, and the Black Muslim Initiative. Now, according to the latest census, just over 1 million people identify themselves as Muslim. This was a census back in 2011. That's about 3.2% of the entire country's population. As far as cities go, right here, Toronto has the largest population of Muslims with over 420,000. This past weekend, Singh's brother was on the receiving end of comments that were seen as Islamophobic. Singh was praised for his response in saying that he is proud of his brother for confronting the person who made these comments. Jagmeet Singh also said that this is not an isolated incident. Now, tonight, Singh is expected to announce the NDP's plan to tackle racism, specific Islamophobia. Now, this includes three things. Number one, making sure that social media platforms are responsible for removing hateful and extremist comments, boosting enforcement against hate crimes, and passing a federal law to ban carding. Singh is also expected to address topics like employment discrimination. Now, earlier, I spoke to the organizer of tonight's event. His name is Mustafa Farouk, and he talked about the rise of Islamophobia, not just here in Ontario, but across the country.
The most recent Stats Canada data did show a seeming plateau. But the year before that, we had a 151% increase in crimes against the Muslim community. Obviously, that's an insane statistic. Imagine if we had a 151% rise in robberies in Canada. I think people would sort of have questions or concerns. So even though the data hasn't, those crimes haven't increased this year, the plateauing from at such a high level is still cause for alarm. And the reality of seeing a 41% rise of attacks against religious institutions, obviously deeply, deeply concerning.
There will be another similar town hall this coming Friday with Green Party leader Elizabeth May as well. The organizer said that in the next couple of weeks they will be announcing another town hall with either Andrew Scheer or Lisa Raitt. Now, I will be here for the duration of tonight's town hall with Singh, and I will have more tonight at 11. I'll send it back to you, Dwight.
We'll see you then, Kelda. Thank you. And the whirlwind of glad handing and making promises at public events has been steadily building for months now. Politicians have been feverishly stepping up their sales pitches for the next month's federal election. As Salima Shivzi Raja tells us, all that's left is the formal authorization to proceed.
So, Prime Minister, it's official now?
It's a power in the hands of the Prime Minister when to trigger an election campaign.
Of course I'm calling an election hoping to win.
That's why an election is necessary now.
The campaigns of the other parties, as near as I can tell, have already begun.
The last one, a marathon 78 days, prompted a change in the rules.
Campaigns have to be at least 36 days, but now can't be longer than 50 days. We're already in that 2-week stretch where the writ period can begin any day now, the latest day being September 15th, leaving some leeway for strategizing over when it's best to go.
Justin Trudeau may be a natural at this, even revel in it. But the conventional wisdom strategists say is the shorter the campaign, the better for a prime minister.
A long campaign tends to give you
a longer time for something to sideswipe you, an issue to come out that you didn't expect, and that's never a good thing for a campaign and rarely for a government.
And launching early would put a stop to this.
It's great to be back in Victoria. $290 million over the next 8 years for housing here in Nunavut.
Funding announcements across the country. Trips on the taxpayers' dime, not the party's. Plus, the Liberals may want more distance from the damning ethics report on the SNC-Lavalin scandal before hitting the hustings, and more time to paint their opponent.
They can launch on the timing that they prefer and sort of get off on the right foot, as it were.
The war rooms are already up, the ads out.
Because it's time for you to get ahead.
I'm for moving forward.
That's my commitment to you.
There's a cap on how much parties can spend on these now, but once the campaign officially begins, the full war chests are available, up to $28 million. That's a problem for the NDP's rookie leader, who is likely hoping for a shorter campaign. The party lags far behind, not only in confirmed candidates, but more crucially, money.
I would prefer if there was more, because it gives you a little bit more latitude, but I have seen us do very well with very little.
The Tories, on the other hand, are flush.
The Conservatives have the money and you know, are kind of ready to go and primed. So you know, you've already got this kind of pre-campaign period happening where they're doing election-style stops and so on.
The Liberals may hold the cards for the official campaign start, but it will look much like the last few months, only with a lot more scrutiny. Salima Shivji, CBC News, Ottawa.
British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has lost a series of high-stakes votes over Brexit, the latest an attempt by the PM to force a snap election.
The House will be aware that the motion has not obtained the majority required under the Fixed Term Parliaments Act 2011.
Johnson's effort to force a general election just 6 weeks after taking office came after a series of brutal political setbacks in the House. First, opposition forces voted to seize control of the parliamentary agenda. Then they passed legislation preventing Johnson from taking Britain out of the EU on October 31st without a deal. All of this was possible only because 21 of Johnson's own Conservative MPs rebelled and voted against him. Johnson then turfed them from the party, including the grandson of Winston Churchill. The government of Hong Kong did a major about-face today after months of public protests. It withdrew a proposed bill that would have allowed Hong Kong citizens to be sent to trial in mainland China. But protest organizers say it took too long and doesn't go far enough. Shasha Petrusik has more.
Hong Kong has become an unfamiliar place.
The announcement by Hong Kong leader Carrie Lam came as a surprise today, a pre-recorded package delivered to the territory's TV stations this afternoon. Her vow that the extradition bill, which set off 3 months of protests, is no longer.
The government will formally withdraw the bill in order to fully allay public concerns.
That was the original demand of the millions who took to the streets peacefully in June. And had this announcement come then, it might have prevented Hong Kong's summer-long political crisis. Coming now, say prominent voices in the protest movement, is too little, too late.
We are not satisfying with Hong Kong government just withdraw the bill. The protest will continue until the day we have free election.
Their biggest complaint is that Lam refuses to meet their other demands, especially to set up an independent inquiry into what they call police brutality. Lam insists the current complaint system is just fine, though she has promised to add foreign experts. But with escalating violence on both sides and with scenes of police beating protesters for no apparent reason without arresting them, much of Hong Kong believes only an independent investigation can deal with the crisis. Based on polls, most in Hong Kong simply don't trust the police anymore. Still, their biggest fear is China and the implied threat that Chinese troops could be sent in to quash these demonstrations the way they did in Tiananmen Square 30 years ago, killing hundreds. Chinese officials say they have no plans to intervene, though state media here has certainly done a lot of saber rattling with threats that an end to the protests is near. That may be what Beijing and Lam hope that today's announcement will achieve, but the protesters seem as angry and defiant as ever. And it seems pretty clear that there will be more clashes in the streets in the days and weeks to come. Sasha Petrusik, CBC News, Beijing.
A flash of emotion from Bianca Andreescu.
Bianca in prime time. The Mississauga teen is getting ready for her quarterfinal match tonight at the U.S. Open. We'll take a look at her rapid rise and why just making it this far is making history after a look at your weather. We need to be as hot out there as Andreescu was the day before yesterday. Man, that kid is looking so good, Colin.
It's so fun to watch her, isn't it? It seems like a meteoric rise, but certainly not to her. She's been working so hard for so long. But yeah, it's really exciting. I hope you'll be excited about the weather. Not quite the heat Dwight and I would like to see, but we do have a beautiful day on tap for us on Thursday. I just want to kind of show you the big picture of the patterns of what's going on here. We were talking about it a little earlier in the show in terms of the steering currents and how that has an impact on Hurricane Dorian and why it won't be on our doorstep here back towards the Great Lakes. So this is a cold front that went through in the past 24 hours. We've had a more significant breeze, so some of those winds quite gusty from the northwest. That's because of that front. It's moving off towards the east. High pressure builds in. Although there could be a little patchy fog tonight, in general, we're seeing a clearing trend and a lot of sunshine throughout the day tomorrow. But as we get towards Friday, so Thursday night into Friday, some cloud cover will be increasing. And the slight chance as we get into Friday that we could see some isolated showers. But it's really this 1-2 punch of these couple of cold fronts pushing eastward, the jet stream helping, being the steering current here. That's keeping, here it comes, Hurricane Dorian as we're getting into Saturday morning. And could likely still be a hurricane, although likely reduced to a Category 1 storm coming up towards Atlantic Canada. So not to say they won't be affected in the Maritimes and into Newfoundland with some heavy rains and those very, very strong winds, but that's what's kind of pushing it away, so it's not going to be an impact for the Great Lakes. Our current temperature is 19 degrees. Unofficial high of 20, although it was 23 close to midnight last night, so that was the high for the day. It just came in the overnight hours. Getting into that clearing trend, so things looking pretty good for us, as I say, into Thursday. It looks very nice. It's as we go towards Friday that we start to see those extra clouds rolling in and those isolated showers. That potential is there, although it's looking like a slimmer chance. Overnight tonight, 10 to 11 for our overnight lows. Yeah, seasonal, but you got to get used to that. And then gorgeous low 20s as we head through the day Thursday. A little cooler with that extra cloud cover Friday, but the weekend not looking too bad, Dwight.
Looking good. Thank you, Colette.
You're welcome.
In less than an hour, Canadian tennis star Bianca Andreescu will play the biggest match of her career so far. She's getting set to face Elise Mertens in the quarterfinals of the U.S. Open. Andreescu is the first Canadian woman to make it this far since 1992. Her meteoric rise in tennis may be a surprise to some, but not for those who have been around her to watch her grow. Greg Ross explains.
It's the biggest stage she's ever played on, and the stakes are high. But those who know Bianca Andreescu say that's not a problem.
Bianca Andreescu becomes the first Canadian to reach the quarterfinals here at the U.S. Open since 1992.
She has zero fear.
Andre Lebel coached Andreescu for several years. He says even before she turned pro, she always had the confidence to play at this level.
We always thought she had a really high level. She proved it this year. I mean, from the ranking she was in December to next Monday, win or lose tonight, she's going to be top 10. We could say she's got the Jimmy Connors instinct. She has the Nadal, the killer instinct. She has it.
Her accomplishments on the court have quickly made Andreescu a household name in Canada this year. But she's been well known to the people who have worked with her at Tennis Canada long before that.
She's always been a wonderful kid and a very, very hard worker. Always in the gym, kind of squatting more than any of the guys.
Ryan Borzon manages tournaments for Tennis Canada. He says Andreescu's success this year hasn't changed her one bit. But Borzon says he was reminded of just how new she is at this a few weeks ago after she advanced to the finals of the Rogers Cup. He was trying to get tickets for her family.
Bianca said, we don't have that many seats. Like, what do you mean? And I said, Bianca, we're sold out because everybody wants to see you. And she said, what? We're sold out. She couldn't believe it.
Tula Bateman organizes charities for Tennis Canada. She says Andreescu may be young, but often shows maturity beyond her years, like when Bateman asked if she could use her likeness for a charity leading up to the Rogers Cup.
And she came back immediately saying, yes, of course, but how about this? If you guys raise $50,000 before my first match, I'll match that $50,000.
Not only did Andreescu come through on her promise, she also went on to win the Rogers Cup, facing Serena Williams in the final. Her former coach wonders if they'll face each other again in the final of the U.S. Open.
That would be amazing. I think I'm going to be making the trip for that one.
Both players have some unfinished business to take care of before that can happen. Millions of Canadians will be watching tonight as Andreescu attempts to advance to the semifinals. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
Often in what I call a wilderness constituency, the party just wants a warm body, someone who's breathing and able to put their name on a ballot.
Are women in politics set up to fail? Coming up, the exclusive results of a CBC Radio Canada investigation. Exclusive CBC Radio Canada data analysis found that more than a century after women won the right to run for federal office, our political system still favors men, and it doesn't matter which political party women candidates run for. Valerie Ouellette now with how women are being set up to fail.
Up here is the NDP headquarters. This is where I had my campaign office.
This is how April Bourgeois' campaigning days would start, crossing all corners of her hometown of Regina to meet voters. She ran in the last general election against Ralph Goodale and lost.
When I decided to run originally, it was to lay the groundwork for the election coming up in the fall here. I was really disappointed with the support that I received from the party. I don't believe it was simply because I'm a woman. However, those with more backing seem to be men.
Her story is not an isolated one. That's what CBC found after analyzing election data for nearly 4,000 candidates who ran for federal office in the past decade. We found that 79% of candidates who ran in stronghold ridings were men, compared to 21% of women. That's 4 times more men in ridings where their party has strong historical support. The Conservatives placed 14% of women in strongholds, while for the Liberals it was 22%. The NDP placed a third of women in these ridings.
Sometimes that one woman can make a huge difference.
This political scientist says equality is not just about recruiting women, it's also about giving them equal chances to win.
Because often in what I call a wilderness constituency, the party just wants a warm body, someone who's breathing and able to put their name on a ballot. They want somebody who, is prepared to sacrifice themselves.
April Bourgeois says in many ways that's what she did and might do again this year.
We need more women in politics, and that means even women being seen to be in politics.
And that matters too. According to our analysis, no party has ever recruited equal numbers of men and women. Valérie Ouellet, CBC News, Toronto.
You can dig into the numbers for yourself online. Our team has everything for you, from infographics to mythology used to get the findings. Just head to cbcnews.ca.
It's a cheeky new ad campaign just in time for TIFF. I'm Lorenda Redekop. I'll show you the message that the Union for Film Directors here is hoping the Hollywood bigwigs will see. I'll have that story coming up.
We heard earlier that some big names are coming to the city for TIFF as per usual, and one of the first things they'll see when they land are billboards promoting homegrown talent. Lorenda Redekop spoke to the union behind the tongue-in-cheek ad campaign.
The hope is that Hollywood filmmakers coming in along the Gardiner will look up from their phones and see this, or maybe just this. It's an ad campaign by the Directors Guild of Canada, just in time for TIFF, and it was born out of frustration.
Some shows come up here, and they've been here for years, and they haven't hired one Canadian as a director. They've been here for years. These are well-known shows.
The Guild is also targeting film biz types as soon as they get off the plane, with ads in the airport. Make More with Toronto is a website the Guild created, boasting about Canadian talent, highlighting productions that have used all Toronto crews, like The Shape of Water and Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale.
You save a lot of money. You get to use the team that's here, the people that we're suggesting are senior folks.
They're using billboards, which is, of course, is Hollywood's hallmark of Hollywood itself.
The chief programs officer for the Canadian Film Centre is impressed with the new ad campaign.
Here in Canada, on-camera and off-camera creative talent and technicians are world-class. And so they should be hired and they should be given first consideration because they're world-class talent.
We showed the ads to this Canadian actor.
Oh, it's funny.
He's appeared in The Handmaid's Tale and he's in 2 films at TIFF. He says the same struggles exist for people working in front of the camera.
I think it's a matter of also getting directors on board that may be American, bringing projects here, that there is a huge talent pool here that they can pull from. I just don't know if they know that, you know?
Ironically, one way he could end up working on big productions here in Canada, he now has a U.S. visa. Lorenda Redicomp, CBC News, Toronto.
Go Transit riders are about to get a little more connected. Starting next year, Metrolinx is rolling out free Wi-Fi on their trains and buses. The rollout is set for spring, and the aim is to have all the nearly 1,500 buses and trains online by the end of 2020. Go Transit will also include free entertainment through their own web portal. But hey, you can always stream our show on the CBC Gem app on your way home. Stay with us. Wonder what he's watching. Are you watching us? We'll be right back. You were talking earlier this week about how the temperature when you leave in the morning might not be the same for the afternoon, and when the kids are coming home late, maybe they had practice or something. How do you dress, right?
I know,
you had
and
3
that's
different
just
outfits.
it. You're trying to get them to remember everything, and now you've got extra stuff that they have to have too, whether it's a little jacket or a cardigan or that kind of thing. We are talking about some layers when we're getting to these seasonal temps at this time of year. An overnight low is around 11 degrees, and guess what? Our overnight low tonight with the clearing trend is going to be 11 degrees. So those winds will be a little bit lighter, could be a little bit of patchy fog overnight tonight, but you know, even at 7 a.m., it's still only going to be about 12.
Yes.
So that's a little cool considering considering where we're headed in the afternoon, it is actually going to be a really lovely day. Good conditions for the start of TIFF, too, showing off our city.
Hollywood
yeah,
North, perfect.
Mostly sunny and 21 for the high, Dwight.
We like that. That's it for us tonight. Thank you for watching. We'll see you back here tomorrow.